All right.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. Happy Friday. It's Tisha out of Arizona, Nate out of Georgia, and today we have Adam Mendler. He is the CEO of the Veloce Group, joining us out of LA. You can see he has his Anaheim Angels shirt on. Good to have you here with us, Adam.
Great to be here. Excited. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday, Nate.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy. So happy it's Friday. It's been a crazy week. Well, good. Well, today we are going to be talking about leadership. Just in general, we have some questions for Adam. Adam, I'm sure, has some great insight as well. So a couple housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can always chat with us real time. Just go ahead and add a comment and we'll get to your questions or, hellos and so forth. I'll be checking the live stream and then Nate takes it away with the questions. So Nate, I'm going to hand it on over to you.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, Adam. So you work with leaders a lot and things of that nature. So I think my first question for you is, what is a recent leadership challenge that you've experienced? That's something that, leadership's challenging to begin with, for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or how good you are, how experienced you are. So let's just talk about that for a second.
Sure. So, very timely question. We're obviously in the midst of a really tough period in the country and in the world with the coronavirus crisis. And to give listeners and viewers a little bit of background, I'm an entrepreneur as well as a writer and speaker, and I have a podcast. But I've started a few different businesses in a few different industries. And one of the businesses that I co-founded and that we run is a company called Beverly Hills Chairs. Beverly Hills Chairs is the leading seller in the country of refurbished brand name office chairs. So if anyone is interested in a Herman Miller Aeron chair, but doesn't want to pay $1,400 for a brand new Herman Miller Aeron chair, you can go and visit Beverly Hills Chairs, and we sell them for more than 50% off retail. So that's one of our companies. And before the coronavirus, we were selling to small to medium-sized businesses all over the country. That was our core customer. And when coronavirus hit, the entire working market changed overnight. Offices were closed. Our core demographic of companies that are growing and want to buy office chairs to accommodate their growth, that just stopped overnight. But what happened was a new demographic spurted, which was the work from home market. So now anyone working from home needs an office chair, needs a desk, needs other stuff for their office. And literally overnight, our customer base completely shifted. So as a leader of that company, I had to personally adapt. I had to tool my team to adapt. We're still every day figuring out how we can best position our business to meet the demands of our new customers, while at the same time not forgetting about the fact that our existing customers are still around. Now, they may not be ordering from us as aggressively as they were before the coronavirus, but it will come back. Business will come back, and we want to maintain those relationships. We want to maintain the ability to continue to sell to them. But at the same time, now that we have this brand new customer base, we want to make sure that we are addressing the demands, the wants, the needs of that particular segment. So as a leader, it's been a big responsibility for me to get our position in a place where we're meeting the needs and wants of our new customers.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of us have found that just even with COVID, we're adapting and our customer base is changing quite rapidly. So what about you, Nate? Do you find that too with Hexalinks?
Yeah, we didn't have to pivot a whole lot because we were already kind of doing everything that people have moved to right now. But in terms of our clients, we've had to help them pivot. Is helping them along and changing the way they operate. It's forced people that were not already in the cloud software and policies and workflows and stuff to actually adopt that way of daily operations because they just didn't have a choice. So
Right.
I've definitely seen that pivot. Adam, what have you guys done to make that pivot? How did you have to change your operations in terms, like, give us some details about everything you had to do internally, your sales and marketing, things of that nature?
Yeah, really good question. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So one example that might be intuitive to listeners is our old customers were ordering chairs in bulk because they were ordering chairs for their offices. So an order could be 20 chairs, could be 40 chairs, could be 50 chairs or more. A current customer is ordering one chair.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're ordering two, but our average order size now is one chair. So we've had to retool our warehouse operations to accommodate the demand for so many more orders of single chairs. So, if we were to sell 100 chairs, those 100 chairs would be distributed to 2 or 3 companies. Now, if we're selling 100 chairs, they could be distributed to 100 different customers. So from a logistical perspective, we've had to adapt, we've had to pivot, we've had to change. And that's been one example. From a customer service perspective, we've had to change because we're now just dealing with more customers. A very tangible example is we just hired another customer service person to accommodate the demand for all of the customer inquiries that we're getting. So at the end of the day, any business you're running, it doesn't matter if it's an office furniture company or a cloud computing company or whatever business that any listener tuning in or watching is involved in. The most important thing in any company is your customer. Without a customer, you don't have a business. So for leaders of any companies, you need to be as customer centric as possible. And one way to ensure that you're truly customer centric is by having a world-class customer service team. And that's something that we're always focused on. And when we realized that there was going to be this influx in customers, we needed to beef up our customer service team.
Wow. I have had some crazy customer service experience just in this last week where we've let go of some companies that we were working with because there was not that heart-centered, people-centered aspect of their business. It was, I'm calling to cancel a policy. They're trying to get me to stay. And I'm like, there's no real reason to stay because of all of these experiences that have just piled up over time. And like, even to try and cancel was going through a 1 hour long call, sitting on hold just to cancel, and then getting to the cancellation department and then having them try and tell me you should stay because we're the best of the best. And I was like, I'm laughing because how is that the best of the best experience? I just sat here for an hour trying to cancel because everything I've asked for, it's been a hard no. So right now, especially, this is a great opportunity to look at your customer service experience. And as I was sharing with this woman on the phone, I'm like, have you been through your customer service experience? Every single one of you. And she's like, that's a good point. I'm like, you guys remember the show Undercover Boss? That's a brilliant show. Put yourself back into your process and see if you have any things that are going wrong, that you could be correcting on your end.
That's a great point. And when you think about it, we all have customer service experiences in our lives that have us walking away feeling extremely upset, angry. You can probably tell from my demeanor in this conversation, I'm not someone who gets angry very easily. I'm pretty even keeled, but I definitely get upset when I'm mistreated by poor customer service teams. And yeah, even in coronavirus, I get that we're more sensitive to the fact that companies are being taxed and being stretched. But I've been like you, I've been on the receiving end of some really bad customer experience during the past few months. And I've been on the receiving end of some really bad customer experience in the course of my lifetime. I actually wrote an article in Forbes about one of those experiences, about really poor customer experience I received at a large retail chain. And what I learned from it, and the lessons that I learned from that experience, and how I tried to take that, and instead of getting really angry and upset, using it as a teachable moment and taking that experience as something that I can bring back into my business, so that as an entrepreneur and as a leader, I can give my customers as good an experience as possible.
That's good. Good, good. Hey, Nate, will you throw this question from Gary up on the screen so people can see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Adam, any thoughts on the area of leadership and how humility plays into that role? I love to work with those in leadership positions that are also digging holes with their teams, which I agree. You can't just tell people what to do. You're like, I'm going to jump in with you. So any thoughts on that? We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, great question. Humility is an integral component to effective leadership. So really, really important question, Gary. And it actually brings out a larger point, which is that I always tell audiences that before you can effectively lead others, you need to be able to lead your own life. You need to be in touch with yourself. You need to be in tune with yourself. You need to know who you are. You need to know your strengths. You need to know your weaknesses. One of the core axioms of effective leaders and effective leadership, I wrote an article that was published in, of all places, Indian Management Magazine. I doubt many viewers or subscribers of it. And it was about what it takes to be a resonant leader. And one of those, in my view, one of those core principles is self-awareness. And humility ties so deeply into self-awareness. Leaders who lack self-awareness are not in a place to lead others. So, Gary, I think that that's an integral part of effective leadership. To the second part of your question and comment about the importance of leaders getting their hands dirty, rolling up their sleeves, and leading by example, that's integral. I wrote an article in Forbes about, you can probably tell by my shirt that I'm a big fan of Mike Trout. And for those of you who don't know who Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. And Mike Trout is not someone who would necessarily possess the qualities that leadership writers would say, or leadership commentators would say, this guy is the exemplar of great leadership. But I wrote an article on why Mike Trout is a great leader and what leaders can learn from Mike Trout. And one of the things that I wrote about was the fact that Mike Trout leads by example. That's his form of leadership. He's not a guy who leads by yelling and screaming and telling people what to do. He's a guy who leads by performing, by working hard, by showing everyone what to do, by doing it himself. And I think that that's important for all leaders in all verticals, whether you're a baseball player, whether you're a leader of a startup, whether you're a leader of a nonprofit, whether you're the leader of your family or a leader in your community. So Gary, really good question, really good comment.
Gary also said pretty good as well. Gary also said Pete Rose was good as well.
Gary, Pete Rose was a great player. Pete Rose absolutely led by example on the field. Charlie Hustle, there's a reason why he got the nickname Charlie Hustle, and that's one of the great nicknames of all time. So now we could talk about what happened to Pete Rose after his playing days, and that's a whole other conversation. That could be an entire podcast in and of itself, and that's the stuff that I live for. So, but absolutely, talk about Charlie Hustle, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself as a baseball player. I played high school baseball, and I was the captain of probably the worst team in the history of high school, and probably the worst team in the history of baseball. And I was the captain of that team. And I was never the best player, and I wasn't the captain because I was the best player. But I was always the hardest working player. I was always the guy in the field who had the most grit. I hustled the hardest. I played with every ounce of heart that I had, and I tried to inspire others around me to utilize every bit of whatever they had. And that's what I try to bring as a leader to whatever endeavor I'm leading. And that's actually not all that different from the way Pete Rose played baseball. The player who I like to compare myself to was Tony Phillips. So if any of you listeners or viewers are baseball fans, as a kid, Tim Sale was my favorite player, but Tony Phillips was the player who I most identified.
I got you. I know Tony
It's over
Phillips.
my head. It's way over my head. I am not a baseball fan. I'm not, but kudos to all of you who are.
Yeah. All right. So, Adam, with what you were talking about just then, I mean, it's kind of a good segue. With what you were talking about and things that you did as the captain of the baseball team and talking about Mike Trout and stuff, how did you take those lessons and stuff that you've learned and experienced as a leader and apply them during this crisis time? Because that's the one thing is like when things are going south, like that's where leaders can shine really, because they have to get out of you can't be your normal. A lot of leaders, they're hands off, they kind of let things happen, blah blah. But when crisis happens, that's not the time to sit back. That's when you kind of really got to get in there and take action. So walk us through what you've been doing this past few months.
Yeah, I tell audiences, this is a question I've been asked about quite a bit, as it's so topical right now. I tell audiences that there's a lot to unpack, but if we had to distill it to three things that leaders should be fully focused on in times of crisis. Number one is it's extremely important for leaders to be honest, truthful, open. Leaders who lack credibility are at a deep, if not insurmountable, deficit in times of crisis. We need the people around us to believe what we're saying. And if we lack credibility, then no one around us will be able to rally around our message, will be able to rally around our vision, will be able to rally in general. So, first and foremost, even before times of crisis, it's critical to lead with honesty, integrity, ethics, but particularly in times of crisis, it's important to maintain the highest ethical standards. Number two is it's really important to be as communicative as possible. I know that in these times, we lack the traditional tools of communication. We can't see each other face to face. We can't hold large gatherings. It's definitely a challenge. But as leaders, we need to leverage all the tools at our disposal and be as communicative as possible, whether that means getting on Zoom, phone calls, conference calls, text messages, Slack. There's so many channels we can use now. And the most important thing is that leaders get out, get in front, not run and hide. And I can tell you that I have a really comfortable bed, and it's tempting to just sort of stay in it and hide under the cover. In times like these, that's the last thing that leaders can do. We have to get up, we have to get out, we have to get out in front. In the financial crisis of 2008, the investment managers who weathered that storm were not actually those who had the best performance, but were those who were most communicative with their clients. Because clients understand that there's really only so much you could do. Mm-hmm. As a leader of the Veloz Group, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to cure and heal people. I'm not in a position to eradicate coronavirus, and people understand that. But what I am in a position to do is to be in front and to be honest and to be communicative. And number three is leaders need to be as flexible, adaptable, open-minded, open to change as possible, and need to tool their organizations to be able to adapt to the winds of change. It's imperative for leaders at all times to be able to adapt to the winds of change, but particularly in times of crisis when change is happening at such a rapid pace and at such an intense pace. We need to be able to move and pivot and turn on a dime.
So true. Gary is chiming in. He likes his bed too. I think a lot of us love our bed. We'd rather just stay there, but it's very true right now. I mean, I've seen a lot of leaders that, as you mentioned, Adam, have hid their faces. You don't hear from them. They were so active before, and now we're like, where'd you go? Like, you completely disappeared. But you're right. It's that whole, you can't stop marketing. You can't stop being out there just because the world is falling apart right now. You know, we've got to band together. Good. Well, I know that we're kind of running short on time as well, but I would love to hear a lot more about your podcast. You've got the 30-minute leaders. You just launched that recently, right? Or have you been doing it for a while?
So the show is called 30-Minute Mentors.
Oh, Mentors, yes.
I launched it in January. It's if anyone's interested, you could find it on any podcasting app. So iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. You could also go to 30minutementors.com. It's all spelled out, so just type out 30-Minute Mentors. And the concept of the show is every week for 30 minutes, I go one-on-one with one of the most successful and accomplished people in the country on how they got to the top. And more importantly, how listeners could get to the top as well. So my guests every week are a founder or a CEO of a household name company, a major celebrity or athlete, a military leader. I have a number coming up, 3- and 4-star generals and admirals. I encourage anyone interested to tune in, to subscribe. I have over 30 episodes that are live as of now. And I would just say start with the guest most interesting to you. That guest could be Rob Lowe or Suzanne Summers. It could be Martin Dempsey or Admiral Jim Stavridis. It could be the CEO of Gold's Gym or Barry's Bootcamp or Deloitte Consulting or Campbell Soup. It could be the founder of Kayak or Square or FanDuel, you name it. So start with whatever you're interested in, and hopefully you're able to really get value. The vision behind the show was I wanted to give listeners access to the best network of mentors possible, and to do it in a way where in 30-minute increments, you can tune in and become more successful personally and more successful professionally. So that's what I've been trying to do through 30-minute mentors.
Did that idea, Adam, come as a result of COVID, or had you always had that in your head that I'm going to start a podcast and this is now the right time to do it? Well, you started it in January.
Yeah, I launched it in January before I had heard of coronavirus, before anyone in, we won't get political, but before the general public had heard of coronavirus. So I think some people in our government knew what coronavirus was, but I certainly didn't know what coronavirus was. I was going to gyms, I was going to restaurants, I was hanging out with friends, I was going on dates. I was living a very normal life. I was actually talking to the Angels about getting season tickets this year. I'm a UCLA basketball season ticket holder. I was going to UCLA basketball games. And I was launching 30-minute mentors. Now it's a little bit of a different world, but hopefully we can get back to that time a little bit sooner.
Absolutely. We have one question, if you have time for one more. Gary asked another question about what does success mean to you, Adam? And we'll close it out with this question.
Gary, that's a great question. And I went to business school, actually mentioned I'm a UCLA basketball season ticket holder. I did my undergrad at USC Business School, and I got my MBA at UCLA. And my definition of success is not something that they teach you in business school, but my definition of success is the net positive impact that you make in the lives of others. I think that it's really important to try to live a life that adds value to other people, and that's how I measure success.
I love that answer. Very good. Nate, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I think Adam hit the nail on the head with everything. The big thing is everybody just continue to communicate, work together, and take advantage of what each other has to offer. So yeah, Adam, thanks for coming on today. It's been great. Look forward to seeing you again some point, and let's all connect and keep working together on some stuff.
And check out his podcast. We have it scrolling, 30minutementors.com, where you can listen to all sorts of leaders sharing their story of success. And thank you to everybody who was tuning in live or who will be watching the replay. I know Michelle joined us on Facebook and said this was really good. She needed to hear this. So thanks again. Adam, always a pleasure. Thank you. And go Angels.
Thank you. We're playing the Dodgers this weekend, so we need a big series. I'm just going to add one more thing. If anyone's interested in connecting with me, I try to make it as easy as possible. It's really just my name. So for those of you on LinkedIn, you can just type in Adam Mendler. You could also go to adammendler.com. You can find me on Instagram at Adam Mendler. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Mendler. So in addition to 30 Minute Mentors, adammendler.com. And thanks again. I really enjoyed this. This was such a fun way to spend the Friday.
All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. Adam, pleasure. Nate, see you next Friday. And we'll see you guys back next Friday for Casual Convo Friday with another hot seat guest. We'll see you guys later.
Thank y'all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.